In this video, I'm going to teach you the 3 primary things I did to get from 17% body fat, where my belly started hanging out a bit over my jeans, all the way down to 8% body fat in 3 months, where I could see literal veins in my abs. I also have with me here DEXA scan proof of my body fat percentage around that time that I'll show you later in the video. If you don't know who I am, my name is Barry McGuire. I've been a PT for 7 years that specializes in helping people get in shape that don't want to live like bodybuilders. Let's get into it. Okay, so my starting point here, before I started trying to lower my body fat, I'd actually been training in the gym for about 1.5 years, so I had a rough idea of what I was doing first, just disclaimer. Naturally, I sat around 73 kilos anyways and deliberately gained weight all the way up to 81 kilos as muscle basically before I started. So I had a solid base of muscle. If you don't have a solid base of muscle and you start losing weight, it tends to not look as good, which is why I'd always recommend building some muscle for most people. This put me in a better position to start losing body fat because, as I'll explain later, one of the things that can happen when you lose weight is that you also lose muscle. And me starting with more muscle than I ever had before meant that even if I lost some, I'd still look better than my starting point. Now my goal was to see what I could achieve in 3 months of work, pretty much. I was just curious and I wanted to satisfy that. But also go through a transformation like this myself so that when I did have to put clients through it, keep in mind this was about 6 years ago, when I did have to put clients through it, that I had a better understanding of what it will be like, and so I could coach them better. And it has helped because I've been able to apply what I've learned from going through this myself to the people that I'm working with, and understanding what it's like sometimes to be hungry, what it's like to get leaner, and what are some of the challenges to sticking to a calorie goal, for example. Another disclaimer on this, I have the sheets here. My starting point was actually 16.7% body fat, and my end point was actually 7.8% body fat. But some of these scans can have a little bit of a margin for error, and I didn't want to put in too many decimals in the name of the YouTube video because it would just look a bit shit, to be honest. So basically it's 3 things that I mainly focused on to get to this point, and the first one was the resistance training regime. Most people focus on cardio-based activity only when they're trying to get in shape or lose weight or lose body fat. And while they know weightlifting might help, they don't understand how massive of an effect it can really have. And when I say weightlifting, by the way, I also mean resistance training. They mean the same thing. If you don't do this right, you'll still lose weight but end up softer and without shape because you also lose muscle. You might have heard the term skinny fat. That's basically what that is. And this is what happens when a lot of people only focus on cardio. This also works in reverse. This is a bit no one talks about. I fucking love this bit. If you fuck up and overeat, you'll gain more muscle as a percentage of weight gained, and not all fat. So it kind of acts as a safety net, meaning if Christmas comes around, which it is at the time of me recording this video, and I'm resistance training, it means that some of the weight I'll gain at Christmas, usually for people it will be fat and water, it means that some of it will be muscle, which will result in me looking better, even though I've fucked up my diet. So it can actually work to your advantage doing resistance training, which is why I put that at the start. Now here's what I did, as you can see here in this graph. Frequency is just how many times I did it per week. I did it 3 times a week, which is actually on the lower end, and got the results that I'll overlay here somewhere as I'm talking about it. The volume is like your sets multiplied by your reps multiplied by your weight. You can calculate it out, but to simplify it, you can just use what's called the principle of progressive overload, which is doing a little bit more every session. So specifically, I tried to either lift more weight and go for personal bests and track these, or do more reps within what I was doing every single session. Now, I wasn't always able to do that, but I was always striving to do that, and that's what the difference is. It's typically easier to sustain that if you're not trying to lose weight. And then intensity is how close, it's not how much you sweat, it's not your heart rate, it's how close your muscle works to failure. Not how difficult it feels, but how difficult it is for your muscle relative to how strong that muscle is, what it's capable of. And so the point that I worked to was close to failure on the last set of each exercise. 2 RAR means 2 reps in reserve. So last set of bench press for chest, shoulders and triceps, I had about 2 reps left in the tank. Sometimes I worked to complete failures, pushing for a personal best. And the split is basically how I organized the way that I train my muscle groups. And I did push, pull, legs. And the reason for that is that I quite enjoyed that split, and Push means you're working chest, shoulders, and triceps. Pull means you're working the biceps, the lats, and most of the muscles in the back. And legs is all legs. So by using this split, I'm covering all areas of the body. I might do a separate video going into splits in more detail if you comment below and ask for it, if enough of you are interested in it. And then the next thing was, so resistance training is one thing. You do also need an optimal protein intake. At least this is what I did. Basically, if you don't get enough protein, you'll have to spend twice the amount of time in the gym for half the results. Now it's a bit of an exaggeration. It's not an exact science, but essentially protein saves you time because you get a higher return for the work you do in the gym. If you pour heart, sweat and tears, bloods, shite, sweat and tears, whatever you want to call it, if you pour all that out in the gym and you get mediocre results, you would have saved and you might have to train a year to get a certain amount of results. If you got in more protein, you wouldn't have, you know what I'm saying. I just can't get my words out, basically. But I'm going to leave this in because I want to keep these videos a bit more free-flowing. And while it's worth optimizing, it can be pretty hard to eat enough. It's actually one of the biggest things some of my clients struggle with. And simply eating a source of protein within each main meal, it won't be enough. And so the evidence-based intake, it's quite a range here, but it's 1.5 grams to 2.2 grams per kilograms of body weight. So if you want to pause this video and calculate that based on your own body weight, I'd recommend that, basically. Otherwise, you'd be asking me again, how much protein do I need? 2.2 is a lot. If you can get that and sustain it, fine. But I personally would struggle to sustain that. I'd go for 1.5 because I can eat a bit less like a bodybuilder and more like a normal person with a normal life, as much as a normal life as I have. And so I've given some examples here to make this easier for you. A poor example here is, let's say you just have protein in your breakfast, lunch and dinner, and for your breakfast you have one boiled egg with toast, 12 grams of protein in that combined egg and toast. A small or medium egg, by the way, probably has the same protein as a slice of toast, so not that much. For lunch, let's say you have a tuna salad. Let's say you have a full tin of tuna. Some people don't even have that. You're talking 24 grams of protein. There's not really much protein in the salad. And then for the dinner, let's say you have a proper chili con carne with 100 grams plus of minced meat. You're talking 30 grams plus of protein. So that brings you to a total of 66 grams of protein. And if we calculate that out, let's say that is say you're going for the minimum target. We would see what body weight you would need for this to be the minimum level of an optimum protein intake. You'd need to be roughly 44 kilos because 44 times 1.5 is 66. I'm not a maths genius. I calculated that before the video because I'm a preparation genius, I suppose you could call it that. And a good example then is, let's say for breakfast you have protein oats. So you have whey protein with a bowl of porridge. 40 grams of porridge with milk that comes from a cow because more protein. Unless you're lactose intolerant and you just shit all over the table, which isn't ideal. 30 grams of protein in that, mostly. Sometimes more. And for lunch, let's say you have 4 eggs scrambled with 2 slices of cheese and toast. This is what I'm having at the moment. You're getting approximately 38 grams of protein. Let's say the chili con carne again, nothing wrong with that. Another 30 grams of protein. So you're seeing here how it adds up. The big mistakes people make is they usually don't get enough for breakfast and lunch, or they don't get any snack protein, which is pretty important. For a snack there, you have protein yogurt. You want to get the ones that have about 25 grams. There's a lot of fucking poverty yogurts that have 15 grams of protein. And some of them are more expensive, so it's probably not even right to call them poverty yogurts. Poverty protein, more so. And this brings you to 123 grams of protein, which is the minimum level optimum protein intake for someone that's about 80 or 82 kilos. So this would have been the minimum level that's optimum for me. Now, I think I had closer to maybe 1.9 or 2 grams of protein per kilo because I was a bit obsessed at the time. And I managed to sustain that, but I did have to prepare a lot and revisit the butcher 2-3 times a week. Otherwise, just buying meat in the shops would be a rip-off. And for anyone wondering, I live in Ireland, so the price of meat is not too bad. A lot of countries get meat from Ireland, so we're kind of lucky in that way. It's a good country for protein. Everything else, not so much. And then the last thing is getting the optimal rate of weight loss. Faster does not equal better. Faster rates of weight loss are associated with more muscle loss and probably also more misery. You'll see results quick on the scales, but slower in the mirror. And if your goal is to become a sexy beast, this probably isn't what you should optimize for. UFC fighter trying to be a fight weight, maybe. Jockey, maybe. And I don't know anything else where you need to be a set weight. Horse rider, that's the same thing as a jockey. Yeah, I don't know, but a lot of people try and lose weight to look better, and so it doesn't really make sense to always optimize for how fast you lose the weight. So the rate of weight loss I went for was about 1% to 1.5% body weight loss a week, which is backed by some evidence, but don't ask me for the studies. I can't remember. If you're really desperate, I can go and look for them for you. They do exist. The start point was 81 kilos. That was where actually, let me double check that. Start point was, that's the end point. I have the DEXA scans here in front of me. I'll make a video showing me go through these in more detail. Start point was I 76 kilos? No, that's my lean mass. I was about 82 kilos, unless I got this in the morning. Let me see. 81.8 kilos. It's up there at the top. So almost 82. I was getting chunky at that time period. So start point was 81 kilos. So this was approximately 0.8 to 1.2 kilos a week that I was aiming to lose if I'm using these rates above, which is what I aimed for. Now I lost about 10 kilos in 12 weeks. My end point was around 71 kilos. And so my average was actually much slower than this for one main reason. And that is, the leaner you get, the more likely you are to lose muscle faster as well. It's not just about your rate of weight loss. And so I was okay with making slower progress. And also I didn't really want to lower my calories anymore. So I was getting pretty hungry, basically. It wasn't the most important thing in the world. And then just a quick one on calories. This is probably the most important thing, because if you don't get this right, you will just not move. You just won't make any progress at all. You'll still benefit from resistance training. You might see some results, but you won't get leaner. Like, you won't lose body fat. And so training right and eating enough protein, eating enough protein, it isn't enough, basically. If you're consuming the wrong number of calories for your body from food, you will not lose any weight. If no weight loss is happening, the chances are fucking slim that fat loss is happening at all. And when you give your body less calories than it needs, you're in what's called a calorie deficit of calories. Let's say that you, I was trying to think of a bank account analogy there. Let's say that you take more money out of your bank account than you put in. You're in a bank account deficit? Not really. That's not really a thing, but you get what I'm saying again. Today is just not the day for me when it comes to making up analogies. I'm sorry you had to witness that. So your body makes up for this deficit by burning fat as fuel. That's how it does it. And so theoretically, a 500 calorie deficit a day, well, this isn't theory, this is fact. 500 calorie deficit a day is a 3,500 calorie deficit in a week, multiplied by 7. And approximately 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. This is a bit of an average here. So that means if we can lose about 1 pound of fat in a week, if we're in a 500 calorie deficit a day and we're consistent with that. So think about every day you get your calories right, you're losing 1/7 of a pound of fat if you're going by a 500 calorie deficit. This can help just break it down a bit mentally. And so the way it looked for me across months was, month 1, I had about 2,500 calories a day at a starting point. I calculated these for myself. By the way, if you want to calculate your own calories, I'd actually recommend using my calculator. I'll put the link for it in the description below. It calculates your calories based on your wage, age, height, activity, all that stuff. And it will email you your calorie number. Month 2, 2,300 calories a day. So I had to lower it a bit because I was monitoring my weight and it was going below a rate that I was happy with. So I was trying to keep it between the 1 to 1.5% body weight a week number. And then month 3, I was about 2,000 calories a day. So even lower, a bigger drop there. And at that point, I kind of stopped because it just wasn't worth. I was fucking 7.8% body fat. I didn't need to get to 6. There was no need for me to get to thick skin lean levels. Some would argue I was at thick skin lean levels, but I wasn't bodybuilding. There was no point. It was just me being curious. And so one of the biggest reasons then people get stuck is because they intentionally or unintentionally struggle to stick to their calorie goals. It could be overeating in the evenings, grazing or snacking throughout the day, pretty common, poorly handling social events, poor meal structure being a big one, so you have to make too many decisions and you end up making the shit decisions or no decisions at all, which is still technically a decision. And if the above are things that you struggle with, Implementing everything here might not be enough because you'll see fuck all results basically until you stick to your calorie goals consistently. Speaking of which, I'm currently working on a video where I show you how to build out your own meal structure so that you can stick to your calories over time and actually get in shape and see results. If by the time you see this I've finished making that video, YouTube should recommend it here on screen. If not, you're too early, you'll probably have to wait and YouTube will probably recommend you another video of mine.